Hello and welcome to this week's Politics Today, and in this programme today we will try and attempt to make sense of the political mess that is currently presiding in Northern Ireland, with Sinn Fein becoming the largest party in Stormont, plus issues over the Northern Ireland Protocol. And as of filming of this week, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in Belfast to have meetings with the leaders of all the major political parties in Belfast to try and get a political breakthrough to restore Stormont. So in this programme today, I'm joined by Robin Benson, a Christian commentator, also from Northern Ireland, and also David Hughes, a Prayer for Parliament. So welcome to the programme. David, I'll start off with you first. Since you're last on the programme, just give us a little update on some of the activities you've been involved in when it comes to Prayer for Parliament, because we know this is absolutely essential to keep our politicians and our House of Commons in prayer.
Well, we've been praying more in Parliament about Northern Ireland. We've had our Zooms focusing on Northern Ireland. And we did, half our team went out, as I think I mentioned before, they went out to Northern Ireland and we met up with Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, Jim Shannon and a couple of other people, Sammy Wilson and others. It was a good visit, and Sir Geoffrey once again reiterated what he'd mentioned to Boris back in December, when he said that he would not provide any ministers if Sinn Fein got in, and he wanted this protocol to be the major focal point. And they actually used that as the main steerage point for the election. But we've been praying and praying, and obviously what's happened is, I think it's a disappointment, but God knows what he's doing. All things are possible. It could be a major shake-up. Let's find out.
Robin, I know that you originally come from Northern Ireland, and this is your nation. And I must say that on the occasions that I visited Northern Ireland, I love the country and I love the people, and it's a special country despite the troubles and despite the conflict that it's had to endure. But can you share with us a little bit from your perspective why we're in the situation that we're in now? I mean, it's so complex, and that's why we're trying to break down and make this as simple as we can. I mean, how did we get to local election results, particularly when it came to the election for Stormont, that Sinn Fein has become the largest party?
I should say it's a complex picture, and I actually spent a bit of time yesterday talking to my sister and my brother who still live back in Northern Ireland, just trying to tease out of them, without letting them know it was in the context of this programme, what their thoughts were, which sort of tied in with the little bit of reading that I've been able to do. And you've got the unionist population, which is divided in its view of the Democratic Unionist Party, which Geoffrey Donaldson leads. Many unionists actually didn't vote at all. So that's one of the reasons that Sinn Fein is in power, or at least potentially could be the senior party. You had other unionists who voted for the Alliance Party, which is this sort of middle of the road that has always tried to work for reconciliation. And then you folk in the Nationalists who normally would vote for the SDLP, but they voted for Sinn Fein because Sinn Fein projected a campaign that my sister said was forward-looking. It was dealing with the issues that are current in Northern Ireland at the minute. Northern Ireland is struggling with all the same things that we are struggling with over on this side of the Irish Sea. Health issues, post-pandemic, economic issues, education issues, the lot. In fact, actually, I read this morning that proportionally to the population, Northern Ireland's health system is the worst in the UK as far as backlogs on operations and all the rest of it. Into that mix has been added problems with getting medications because of the protocol. So actually a lot of people in Northern Ireland, how can I put it, were absolutely cheesed off with the stance that Geoffrey Donaldson and the DUP took. It's like they were looking back, they were looking to the past, ploughing an old furrow instead of talking to the people, trying to get them to vote for them on issues that are current at this particular time that people are struggling with. That's not to say that there isn't a problem with the protocol. There is, obviously there is. But the folk in Northern Ireland were not that interested in it. They're more concerned about their own livelihoods, their own ways of life. And in the nationalists, the Roman Catholic population, Sinn Fein played towards that and took votes away from, I suppose you would call the SDLP sort of middle of the road within the nationalist camp. And therefore you have the situation that you have today.
Brilliant explanations. I really appreciate that, Robin. And David, for example, last year marked the 100th anniversary of Northern Ireland as an independent country. And this is what Boris tweeted. He tweeted this one, that 100 years ago, after the creation of Northern Ireland, Boris Johnson tweeted, "Let me underline that now and in the future, Northern Ireland's place in the UK will be protected and strengthened." That sounds a bit shallow now, doesn't it, in light of the Northern Ireland Protocol and Sinn Fein becoming the largest party in Stormont. And if Boris is not careful, isn't there a great danger that we could be moving towards a unified Ireland with Sinn Fein as the major political party, and this could then be one of those seeds that leads to the breakup of the British Isles?
We've been working on that principle and praying against it, and we've actually been praying that Boris would wake up to the situation. He's been told twice by Sir Geoffrey Donaldson that this could lead to the breakup. I don't know how much time Boris has got. We're praying for the Lord would touch him and he would come to take the Lord into his account and not just himself, because basically he still could pull Article 16 and finish the job he was put there for, which was to actually activate Brexit. He should have done a clean break back there, when we had Brexit, and it would have saved all these problems. But he could still do it and go out fine. But if he's going out and that's Northern Ireland's breaking up, hanging on a plate to Scotland, who also want to go independent, and then what are we left with? England and Wales. It's not on the cards. I don't know. Boris is not. He's letting everybody down. That's the tragedy of the whole thing.
And you have another factor here.
Please, yep.
Northern Ireland, as a region at the Brexit referendum, voted to remain. And yet Geoffrey Donaldson, and please don't misunderstand, I'm not beating Geoffrey Donaldson and the DUP into the ground, but they have ignored the wishes even of some of their own constituency who were against Brexit and are still against Brexit. And therefore, again, trying to make a big deal of the protocol and the hassles that it has clearly caused is not talking to the people of Northern Ireland who they're trying to get on board. And coming back to Boris, what did Boris say? That there would be a border down the Irish Sea over his dead body. I'm quoting. That's what he said at the time. Well, what is there? There's a border down the Irish Sea. So again, many of the folk in Northern Ireland treat Boris the way that many of us treat Boris. They don't believe a word that he says. And you sent me a link to an article that came, in The Guardian sort of towards the end of last week, where the guy says every time Boris makes a promise, stick the word no or not into it, and that's what you'll get as the end result. And it's happened over and over again. And yeah, he's there in Belfast as we record this program today. Whether it'll make a hoot of difference, nobody knows. But you can guarantee when he gets back, or before he leaves, he'll be playing it up as, he solved all the problems. I doubt it very much.
Robin, can you just elaborate a little bit more for our viewers to unpack what the Northern Ireland Protocol is? As far as my understanding is, this was the agreement that Boris signed with the EU, and as part of us getting an agreement with the European Union that we would sacrifice Northern Ireland, and that Northern Ireland are trading under EU rules rather than British rules, therefore essentially cutting off Northern Ireland from the rest of mainland United Kingdom. Is that correct? Or
yeah, I was saying to David, I almost lost the will to live on the way up on the train this morning because I read through the protocol it's 63 pages of government legalese. Thankfully, the sort of latter half is just references to all the EU legislation that it tries to deal with. But basically, Northern Ireland is still part of the European Union, effectively.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it shares a border with the Republic of Ireland that actually still is in the European Union. So anything that is shipped across from mainland UK, Scotland, Wales, via any of the ferry ports or is flown in through the airports, that potentially might cross the border into the Republic of Ireland has to be declared. If there's customs duty on it, all of that paperwork, the paperwork that this protocol has generated is unbelievable. And of course, you've got government departments that have been set up. So you've got jobs for the boys, keeping a whole nest of flunkies trying to administrate all this. But basically, Northern Ireland is still in the EU as far as the EU is concerned. And you can bet your bottom dollar or your bottom euro, the EU is not going to let go of that, if only to stick it to Boris, for taking the UK out of the European Union. They are going to use this to make life as difficult as possible for the UK government. They're not going to give on it, even though there is within the protocol, there is wriggle room to change things. But the EU is ignoring that. In amongst all the legalese, there are opportunities to renegotiate certain aspects of it. The European Union is ignoring that. And, if Boris triggers Article 16, it's a case of, I think, of lighting the blue touch paper, step back and watch the fireworks go off, because the EU will retaliate. No question.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on Boris's actions? I mean, as the recording on this programme today, that Boris has announced and his ministers have announced that they want to actually deal with some of the legislation regarding the Northern Irish Protocol that they don't like. They want to get rid of it. Critics of Boris are saying that this would actually be in breach of international law and could possibly cause a trade war between ourselves and the EU. I mean, the whole situation is extremely precarious, is it not, David?
I was reading this morning Boris's article to the Belfast Telegraph of how he sees the whole situation as he's going out to Northern Ireland. And it reads like sort of a Boris dream of thinking he can sort it all out. I know he's going to come up against Sir Geoffrey and the DUP, and I'd be very surprised if they're going to change their mind. So the situation is going to stay in limbo. You've got the situation anyway where Sinn Fein, God forbid, when I was out in Northern Ireland serving in the Navy, patrolling, Sinn Fein was the IRA, and they still are. They're a party that I wouldn't trust as far as I could see them, but they have been put in the position of being able to lead. But the problem is they can't lead because there are so many unionist party. If there goes to go to another election, it could be that all the unionist parties could amalgamate together and make an agreement, and then Sinn Fein will be put back a bit and the unionist side would stick. The tragedy is, as Robin's always saying, is you've got 3 unionist parties and they're all got different agendas, and yet their thinking is the same. They are still wanting to be part of the United Kingdom. Boris is trying to sort of possibly break it all up, and when he goes, which I don't think will be too far away, we'll see.
Yeah. And Robin, I have to bring an equation, because it's so important to acknowledge to our viewers outside of Northern Ireland, for example, that there are a lot of Christians in these political parties, particularly the DUP, and they also helped to prop up Theresa May's last administration as well. So and also the fact is, you go to Northern Ireland with the Protestant community there, they are probably the most British of all the home countries, whether it's Wales or Scotland or England. They're certainly the most pro. Certainly some areas you see the British flag, you see the Queen and everything else, and Glasgow Rangers football shirts. Something quite to behold, actually, just from a tourist point of view. But can you explain how how much prayer do they need, and how much wisdom do they need in this situation? Because we also know, for example, that abortion was forced on Northern Ireland as well, something that they had resisted for so long, and it's been forced on them. So their relationship with the mainland, with Westminster, is a difficult one right now, is it not?
Yes, it's very strained. And in fact, I read an article over the weekend. I read so many I can't even remember where it came from, but that included in Boris's talks today are other issues other than the protocol, and one of those issues is the abortion issue.
Yeah, he plans to bring it in.
He intends to push for it.
Yep.
That it actually goes through. So it's not the protocol may be his main reason for going to Northern Ireland, or that's what's being trumpeted by the media. But he has other agendas as well that he's going to tackle today, and that puts the unionists, whatever camp they're in of the three parties, the unionist population, many of whom are Bible-believing Christians, in a very difficult situation. And it's placing the unionist politicians in the Stormont government in a situation, do they compromise or do they take a firm stand on what the scriptures say or not? And again, like David said, none of us know what the outcome of that is going to be. But it's going to be, we're in uncharted waters. This has never happened before. And the fact that Sinn Fein is potentially the chief element of the government, with all of their agenda, which is being run from Dublin. Make no mistake, the leader of the Sinn Fein party in the Stormont Parliament is just a puppet for the IRA party in the Dáil in Dublin. She's just doing exactly what they tell them to do. And they've got their own agendas as well. Again, something my sister brought up in our conversation. They're really pushing that the Irish language should become a required item to be taught in all schools in Northern Ireland. Now, there are many Catholic schools who do teach it, as a supplementary subject. But the understanding is that maybe, 5-10 years down the road, if this gets pushed through, it's one of the reasons why actually the previous assembly sort of fell apart, because again, the unionists resisted this. But you will not get a job unless you can speak Irish. And that, the ramifications and the ripple effects of that sort of trying to change the whole culture of the majority of the population in the north could have ramifications down the road that, again, who knows, but not good stuff.
Yes, very similar thing happening.
And Boris in that speech was actually again reiterating his congratulations to Sinn Fein. He was, as we've heard, pushing the abortion thing, but the fact is you've got a Sinn Fein behind it. There is, when we've been praying for them, we've felt there is witchcraft behind the situation there. When we were actually at Stormont itself, we went along and across the entrance of the gates, literally in front of Stormont itself, there were these white sort of bit like wheat or hay, but we think they were symbolic of some ritual, witchcraft or whatever. And that has actually been confirmed because we sent photographs off to someone who said, yes, that's something not godly. So that's an area where people have got to start praying into as well.
Absolutely. Also, the prospect we could see ourselves is with a forthcoming general election in the Republic of Ireland that Sinn Féin form the next government, and that will make life even tougher if they then come to power in the Republic of Ireland with their goal of unification of Ireland. But when we look at the practicalities of this, there is no way the Republic of Ireland could afford to absorb Northern Ireland into the Republic of Ireland. Financially, the costs involved and everything else. So is this something that Sinn Féin are missing in their kind of calculation analysis to try and push for a united Ireland?
I think they're using words. I think they use a lot of words, but there's no meat behind it. And you said actually that your sister and brother-in-law has said that how Sinn Féin have worked on the situation about the cost of living and everything like that. Well, they can say what they like, but I'm pretty certain they can't sort it out any better than any of the others can sort it out.
No, they can't. But in the mind of Irish people,
I understand.
and the mind of nationalist Irish people on both sides of the border. That doesn't matter. This long history of Protestant ascendancy in the 6 counties in the north is something they want to see undermined and wiped away. And Sinn Fein, and you're right, they are on the ascendancy in the Republic of Ireland. Little by little, with each election that's come along, they have increased the size of their hold in the Dáil. And there could well come a time in the not too distant future where they actually are in power. You just wait and see when they are in power what they start pushing for, when they have the full authority of the Irish state behind them. And that will feed into the minds of at least 2 to 3 generations in the Republic and 2 to 3 generations in the North who have been witness to all the troubles that went on in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. And it won't matter the practicalities. It's beating the British. It's throwing the British out. It's putting the Protestants back in their place. We're now in charge. That's the mentality. And I think that's one of the problems that many folk on this side of the Irish Sea don't understand the historical mess that there is behind, what went on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the long memories that people have, and the desire really to see the whole island united as a republic, no matter what it costs. That's the aim.
Of course, but we also have to remember the blood that was paid as well, victims of terrorism caught up in the conflict as well. But do you actually think, having reflected on this over the weekend, Robin, what makes me think is with the Good Friday Agreement, when it was actually signed by Tony Blair, was it back in 97?
98.
98, that sort of period of time. Was this actually an agreement to actually overthrow the entire system in Northern Ireland? So you actually give power to the Catholic community and to the nationalists as a means of bringing about peace between the two sides?
I think that was part of it. I think
both, the long-term goal.
I think both sides were exhausted. Both sides were exhausted by it. Both the British government and both populations in the north. It had gone on so long. But I think too, the IRA, you listen to some commentators who try to take a middle course on this. They say that the IRA was beaten in many respects. And so they gave ground, but then the British government had to give ground. And of course you had the American administration sticking its oar in, and Clinton and all the rest of it, trying to put the imprimatur on it too. So again, it's another complex situation, but we live today with the repercussions of some of the decisions that were taken, including this business of the open border. Because the open border, pre-exists the protocol, but it's the open border that's actually dictating many of the terms within this protocol. And it's understandable. Sometimes I can't get my head around the fact that people are so worried about putting customs checks back on the border. But I don't live there anymore, And to have an open border where you could literally come and go between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland with no checks, it probably was a major advantage. And some folk just do not want to see that because of the connotations, again, prior to the Good Friday Agreement.
Prior to Brexit, Boris was talking about the border not having a problem, rather like Sweden and Europe. Traffic goes backwards and forwards, It's all done on cameras, it's all done on computers. Boris was talking about a border.
We were sold that,
We were sold that there wouldn't be a problem there. And of course Europe only puts this thing in because, as you say, they want to hold on to a bit of the United Kingdom at the expense.
But also, we also have to put in context that this is probably the last bastion of our Judeo-Christian heritage in Europe is in Northern Ireland. So, of course, the nationalists want to get rid of that because of their kind of liberal extreme ideology, the same as the EU want to get rid of that as well. As Christians, how can we be praying for the situation in Northern Ireland, David?
It is a spiritual battle, and I don't know how many Christians understand that it's a spiritual battle. You've just got to get in and intercede, and we need more intercessors where they can literally have a silent time, listen to hear what God's saying, see what the prophets are saying, and then pray into it. That's what we've been doing, and we know quite a bit of what's going on in the spiritual level, but we've just got to stick with it. God's got a plan. He's got it planned. Sometimes, like that scripture says, His ways are not our ways and His thoughts are not our thoughts. So we just got to stick in there, keep praying, and see what the Lord's doing.
And Robin, how much do our viewers watching this programme on mainland Britain actually need to start praying and interceding for the situation in Northern Ireland? Because there are fabulous Christians there who are really strong, Bible-believing Christians who are really up against it, whether it's from Sinn Fein, whether it's up from the Republic of Ireland or the EU, or even Boris's own domestic policies.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what David has just said. That's what people need to be praying into, but also pray into the fact that somehow some compromise can be come to that allows the Stormont government, the local assembly, to function. Because you and I, all of us sitting in this room, and most of the folks on this side of the RSC who are watching, are enjoying the freedoms that have come to us since the pandemic restrictions have gradually been taken away. They're more or less in full flight in Northern Ireland, and because there's no local assembly, there's no one to take them away. So the people in Northern Ireland look at what's going on here, and that frustrates them also, that they see that their politicians can't get together and start to free up the country, free up the economy. So it has very practical implications as well as the spiritual ones.
And David, within 30 seconds, this is such a serious issue that the union is at stake here, isn't it? If we don't pray, we don't intercede, and we don't stand with the people of Northern Ireland.
We've got to. I think a lot of Christians will understand that the United Kingdom of Great Britain was put in place by God. It's a godly aspect, and I can't imagine it not being there. Imagine sort of having an Olympic Games without the United Kingdom. Pray into it, keep praying.
David and Robin, thank you so much for being my guests on this week's Politics Today, and I want to thank you for watching this programme today. I think we've somehow unpacked some of the complexities and some of the difficulties facing the Northern Ireland. Our hearts go out to the people of Northern Ireland. Many of them are brave, courageous, Bible-believing Christians who need our support. We need to pray into this situation that God's will would be done, because if we lose Northern Ireland, it looks like we'll lose the rest of the United Kingdom, and we can't have that on our watch. So thank you for watching this week's Politics Today.